As a spec builder, do you hate pre-selling your homes because of the thought of having to work with a buyer and all the nonsense that comes along with it? I get it, that's why we're spec builders. But at the same time, it would be nice to sell our homes the minute that we're finished, right? I used to feel the same way until I added these few steps into my process, and now not only do I enjoy it, but we get paid the minute we finish our homes. Stick around, I'm gonna show you exactly how we do this. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell to be notified every time we drop a new video on how to be a successful and confident new construction spec home builder. I help many builders just like yourself in my coaching program become more profitable, be able to keep more money in their pocket by outsourcing and using other people's money, and get more time back so that you can enjoy the fruits of your labor. Okay, let's get started going through our 6-step process on what we do when we get a pre-sale buyer on the line. We start working with them to make sure that we get paid faster on our builds. Step 1, before you ever even start building, before you ever even send this to an architect, you should create a spec sheet. Here's an example of what mine looks like. It starts off with some basic information about the lot, subdivision, address, whatever you have, your architect, structural engineer, based on the price that you're going to put this out at, total square footage. This is, again, before it goes to your architect. Afterwards, I did update this because I think we had in there a range, because we want to give a direction for our architect to go in. Of course, all this stuff came after we got final plans, but you're filling in all this information later. Plan description, give a base of what you're looking for in the plans. But here's the main part for the sake of the pre-sale. The pre-sale is going to give you just some very basic information about the build. As you see, like when we get into, let's call it finishes, go into tile. We're talking about where tile is going to go. We're not talking about what type of tile, what kind of color, anything like that. We're just kind of giving an idea of what's going where, just give us an idea of our design, our layout, different things like that. Hardwoods, what we're planning on putting, where we're putting it, but I'm not putting the brand, the color, anything like that whatsoever. I'm just putting engineered wood glue down is what we're using in this particular house. Carpet, cabinets, just a basic idea. So this is your spec sheet. And when a buyer comes on, you basically want to share this with them, go over all this information. Once we go into contract with them, we want to make sure that they understand all this, because if it's very early on, like let's say the framing stage, you want to make sure that they understand where you're at. Then from this point, you get initials, and then at the bottom and over here, you get the signature. So this is a step 1, and this comes well before you ever have a buyer in place. This is before you go into architectural drawings. So you want to have this as a part of your build from the very beginning. Step number 2 is you want to make sure that you have a designer in place and they go through and make all the selections. And a lot of times this comes on well before a buyer comes into place, because when I'm pre-selling a home, I'm not putting it on at the very beginning. I'm typically waiting until I get a foundation in at the very minimum. And sometimes I even wait until I get it framed up, because I'm not trying to do a custom build and take a plan that we already have approved with the city and change it up and make structural changes and all that stuff. So therefore, if we already have everything framed up and then we list and then we get a buyer on the hook right away from that point, from there, that's when we go into all of the details of what did we select? What was our spec sheet about? Here's our architectural plans, our engineering, all these different types of things. So we go into design. Design is going to take us into, this is a typical design sheet that will show us, all the different details of selections that we're looking at. Okay, so it'll give us model numbers, maybe it's going to give us colors in certain things. I guess these are things that the designer wants to hold off on, has it selected for whatever reason. Basically gives you a full design of everything that you need for the property. Okay. Then you can have a design board. This one isn't completely finished yet. We're actually just starting this house, but they're getting some of the details still in here, working with a few things. A lot of times they want to feel the space before they finish the last little bit of final selections. So that's the case in this particular one. But then you want to do a design board. A design board is going to show something like this. An example of a design board is here where it's showing flooring, it's showing cabinet hardware, granite countertops. We've got colors of the paint colors, the door selection, one of the tiles here, the backsplash tile that goes with the countertop. Looks like this might be like a front door or side door, but just showing you the different examples, plumbing fixtures. This is a partial design board, an example of what a design board would look like for you. You're doing that so that when you show the potential buyer that is interested in a home, not only this is the model number, but they can actually see what the actual selections look like. So if you have that in place, then you're cutting a lot of time. You get a buyer on the hook. You can share this information over with the realtor. The realtor is dealing with the buyer, showing them these different pieces to see if maybe, yes, they're interested, they want to move forward. They may see if they can make any kind of changes and such, and that's completely up to you. But I think it's very important to set an expectation from the beginning. If you get a buyer, what are you going to accept and what are you not going to accept? Step number 3, I mentioned this a little bit already, but I want to make sure that you know and understand if you're first getting started, before you're fully comfortable with letting this a little bit looser, you want to make sure that you don't even list the house until it's completely framed up. You've got the trades that went through there, therefore your electrician, your plumber, your mechanical contractor. You've got this house ready just about before you're going to close it up and put drywall in there, and then you can list the home. And you know what? I've noticed that in certain places, it's more important for a buyer to be able to see it more finished before you do list the home. But then in other places, they have more creativity and can walk in, feel, see the space, and they can make a decision much earlier on. So this is something that, as you get more comfortable with this process, maybe you can loosen it up and the minute you start framing or right after you start framing versus waiting until all the trades are in. Maybe it's something that you want to continue and stick with it being at that process, because once the trades have gone through, you're not going to really be able to make all that many changes, maybe a few colors here and there. If you feel like this video is valuable, make sure that you hit that like button. I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Are you feeling more comfortable about pre-selling homes? Is this something that you do or you've tried? If so, drop a comment. Let me know what your process looks like. And if it's something similar, if you got any kind of aha moments out of this or something that you want to share that you feel like you're doing better. Your thoughts and questions make these videos even better, so don't hold back, share, let me hear your thoughts. Step number 4, this is probably the most important part of the entire process, is setting the expectations. Let's just say that you've got a buyer, drywall is hung, and the buyer comes in and they want to make a bunch of changes. Well, if you set the expectations, because you are a spec builder, you'd love to pre-sell your home and you'd love to allow them to be the first one to come in on this before it's opened up to the open market as a finished product, because at that point in time, there's going to be a whole lot more buyers that are coming that actually want to see homes finished and move-in ready. So you set the expectation that, look, there's only a certain amount of changes that you're allowed to make. Everything else is all purchased, ready to go. We've already roughed in for it, and now we're just putting the finished touches on. Some of the things that we allow them to do is maybe some of the paint colors, as long as we approve it, because if they come in, even though they put a non-refundable deposit down, and for some reason they can't close on the house, and they paint their house pink, blue, yellow, some wild, crazy colors, we're going to have to repaint it to bring it back to the neutral colors that the majority of buyers would want in the home. So we always make it so that we have to approve the colors that they choose. Another option might be some granite countertops, same thing with our approval. We might give them, 3, 4, 5, 10 different options to choose from, and that's all they get as a choice. If you're letting them choose the granite countertops, you have to be able to allow them to choose the tile backsplash. Now, I may say to them, look, you can change the tile backsplash, but we've already purchased it. Therefore, whatever you choose, if it's something different, you're going to have to pay for the full amount of what that is, not a deduction of. For an example, with the granite countertops, if they choose the same level, it doesn't cost us anymore. It's a like for a like. Maybe they choose a level 2 or a level 3, then I would say it's going to cost X amount more. But for something like a tile backsplash, if it doesn't go with their new countertop selection, then I make them pay for the full amount, not any kind of difference of. Other than that, that's pretty much the extent of maybe some of the changes that they can make. Now, if you want to allow more, that's up to you. Just keep in mind, the more you allow them to change, the more that this is going to become a custom build, not a spec build with a pre-sale buyer. That's when most builders get really frustrated, is when they start to loosen up that leash a little bit and allow too many selections. The difference between being a spec builder and a custom builder is that a custom builder, it's going to allow them to make all the selections from the very beginning. When you're a spec builder, usually finish the homes up completely, then put them on the market. But it would be nice to get a buyer early on. A way to do that is to follow these steps that I'm going through and just make sure that you set these expectations the right way from the beginning. Step number 5, any change orders must be paid in full up front as a non-refundable. So I mentioned about the tile. So if they wanted to change the countertops, maybe from a level 1 to a level 3, they pay that difference, number 1. Number 2, if they wanted to change the tile, you're gonna tell them it's gonna cost X amount, and they're gonna pay extra for the tile. Now remember, there's a retail price and then there's a wholesale price. You're getting it wholesale, you're selling it retail. So you make sure that you're making a profit on the materials and the labor as you're going through this whole thing. Another thing to mention is that you give a very short timeline on reviewing the design and coming in, and if they want to make any changes, because if anything holds you up whatsoever, then guess what's happening? That interest clock is not going to stop ticking just because you might have a buyer on the line. So if you have to stop construction for a week, 2 weeks, you need to account for that time in the cost of all of these change orders. So if it ends up costing you another $3,000 in interest because you've stopped everything, they need to understand every day the construction stops, it's going to cost X amount per day on top of everything as a change order because of the interest carry that's going on for the construction loan. Step number 6 is get this project completed on time based on the timeline that you gave the buyers when they came on and signed the contract. So if you give them a timeline, first and foremost, you don't want to give them an exact date. You could say, our schedule has us finishing on this day, but you want to expect sometime between this and this. And I would typically give anywhere from a 2 to 4 week window, because you can have delays on materials, you can have delays on inspections, contractors, weather, the list goes on, theft, somebody breaks in and damages the house. So you want to make sure you set an expectation up right from the beginning. And usually about 30 days before finishing, you can give them a more solid day so that they can start locking in the closing, moving trucks, and everything else that they need to do as you get closer. If you're still struggling to understand the pre-selling process, but you really want to learn this for the sake of being able to sell your homes much faster, reach out to me at info@homebuildingbp.com. Let's get on a call, talk about it, and see if it's something that is a good fit and I can help you improve your processes moving forward. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.